Hi, and welcome to the PEPP Story Show. Tonight I'm talking about, different types of speaking, and I'm going to be drawing on my personal experiences as a speaker and as a trainer to contrast the difference between training and keynote speaking and look at some of the other types of speaking tonight. Through the rest of the week, I'm going to be introducing a few of guests on the show and looking at their speaking stories. And through all of this week, what I want to do is look at different types of speaking and what you can learn from different people and myself that will help you with your speaking. So that's the process for tonight. So let's get on with the show. So we're looking at, not looking at audience engagement, we're looking at our purpose, experience, passion, performance, and story. And tonight it's really about sort of bringing it all together, or the whole this week, bringing all those elements together, just to look at what types of speaking we've got. And in particular, I want to look at the contrast between training and keynote speaking, because a lot of people in the Professional Speaking Association come from a background of training and then merge into keynoting. Some come straight into keynoting, and then some go from keynoting back into training. They're very different disciplines, and sometimes a little bit of conflict exists between these people who've got training backgrounds like myself and those who've come into keynoting. I think most people who come into training come up through some kind of product development, some kind of product knowledge. People who go into keynoting have often come straight from leadership positions or from a position of celebrity position, where they're keynoting about their experiences of becoming an Olympia, becoming a business leader, or building companies, building businesses, building markets. And they're drawn in because they've got some particular specialist experience, or they've made a name for themselves and are a celebrity, and that's where they're keynoting. Some have come up the route, they've become very expert in what they're doing, but the thing about a keynote speaker is that they have very, very high levels of knowledge in a particular area, and it's that's being drawn upon. Training, much broader. Most trainers have a much, much broader area. Often trainers have to do a whole range of different topics, none of which they're particularly expert in, but they've acquired some skills in training, and they acquire the knowledge through having been on training courses, developed in management. So let's just have a look. I started out in the insurance industry. Quite by accident. I'd been to Butlins, had a season at Butlins. I was 19 years old, wanted to get away from home, and basically went to London, stayed with a friend for a while, and they said, you should get a job. So I looked around at a few places, and the insurance industry was offering jobs. They offered a job. They offered me the opportunity. I hadn't got decent grades, so I couldn't do A-levels. I couldn't get to university with my A-levels. I had 3 A-levels, but they just weren't good enough. But from an employer's point of view, they weren't really interested in the grades. If you had A-levels, that was it. You got in at a certain level. It defined the salary you started at. And it meant I could start taking professional qualifications. And they were offering to give me a pay rise every time I passed an exam. Well, I was actually quite good at passing exams, maybe not getting the grades, but at least I could get through. So I joined the insurance industry. I had planned to go into acting, but I couldn't get into acting college. And to be honest, I think going to London to become an actor and getting it, I would have had to live a fairly frugal life. It was frugal enough even with a job. So I got into the insurance industry, and in particular, I got into a mortgages department. So I was approving people's mortgages for first-time buyers often, and we offered 100% mortgages. So it was quite popular. And that was what I learned. So I spent quite a few years developing that. After I did a bit of time in pensions, and then I got another job in the mid-70s working in a company which had sort of merged its training and marketing functions. Marketing was still very new then. As a discipline, it was quite new. It had sort of emerged out of America, and everybody was sort of thinking, well, we ought to do some sort of marketing. And marketing generally meant, let's get some brochures. And so I got involved in, I was quite good at writing. I'd just done an English A level, so I could write quite well. And so I was writing technical manuals and training manuals and helping out on a training course. I didn't have any sales experience or anything, and this was a sales organization. This was I was supporting the sales operation of an insurance company selling life insurance. But I was developing training manuals, training materials, sending stuff out so that the salespeople could do their job better. And that was my job. And from writing that, wanted to get on to doing some training. I quite liked the idea of speaking. Now, I had acting training at college, so I was really already raring to go for this. But the company was very, very clear. If you're going to speak about sales, you have to have been in sales. You have to earn the right to speak. I hadn't been in sales, so they weren't going to let me speak about or train salespeople on anything to do with sales. That all had to be done with people who had a track record in sales. What they would let me do was the technical training. I could train on mortgages. So that was my first speaking engagement. My first ever speaking engagement. I'd spent, weeks, months, I think, preparing a 30-minute presentation on how mortgages works. I had lots of overhead. This was in the 70s, so not really working with slides then. You could do slides, but they were very expensive to operate. So we did mostly overhead projector slides. We had an overhead projector with acetates on, and I produced all these diagrams and got the graphic designer who was in the same department as me to help me put some slides with different overlays and things so I could actually demonstrate and show how a mortgage worked, how a repayment mortgage and down worked, all these different types of mortgages, so that the salespeople understood what they were selling when they were out dealing with their clients. And it worked very well. And I started to develop a really good skill over that time of being able to take something that was quite technical and turn it into something that was actually very understandable by somebody who didn't have the technical knowledge. By this time, I had the equivalent of a degree in insurance. I was a fellow of the Chartered Insurance Institute. But I really wanted to get into the sales training bit because that was the fun bit. That was which was going to be much more exciting. But I had no sales experience. So that all came about. How did I get it? It came about because basically I bought a house. I got married, had a child, and I needed money, and basically everybody lent me all sorts of things. I'd lent me money for carpets, and all the things you need for a house was on credit, and suddenly I found I couldn't pay it. So I got a job driving a taxi for a while until I had a bit of an accident with the taxi, and that day I thought, what am I going to do? And I came across in the newspaper a job, multi-level marketing. And it was selling cookware. And the way that the cookware was sold was that I had to go into someone's house, get an appointment, go into someone's house, demonstrate by cooking them and their friends a meal, and then go back and try and sell the cookware. Well, it turned out that I was pretty good at product demonstrations. Back to this whole thing of speaking, because I was doing the speaking and it was really, really good. I could demonstrate, and that actually I learned about getting some banter, audience engagement, all those tools and skills I've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. I learned a lot of them just selling this cookware. I was taught by people who knew what they were doing. There was a script to follow, but I was really good at, once you got the script and memorized it and worked it, and it wasn't like a memorized script, it was a process. But once I got it, I could engage with people, lots of good jokes and humor into it. And I was quite good at cooking. So it turned, actually, you didn't need to be good at cooking. This cookware cooked itself. It was so good. Miracle Made, it was called. Not available anymore, but it was fabulous, fabulous cookware. And it really, really went very well. And then, as a result of that, the company I worked for said, look, why don't you go and help manage our branch? So I became an associate manager in the branch. I started managing salespeople, and then I started going out. I was training in the branch, doing sales training, and actually having to go do it as well and do some sales. And all of that led to me then getting a job as a sales training manager with a new company. But now, all of a sudden, I was in management. I was now beginning to start getting involved in developing products. And because I was good at training and was good at speaking, and I developed this skill of product presentations from a couple of years selling cookware part time. I actually started to develop some skills, and I began to realize the difference. Suddenly, I was asked to launch a product, 10-minute presentation at a huge, company-wide meeting. All the salespeople from all around the country came in, and my job was to get up on stage in 10 minutes and launch the product. Well, I had to completely change everything because where I had been working on doing 2 or 3 days, 5 days of training, this is the thing about training, is that it's not, I can make sure you learn a skill. I teach you the skill, I get you to practice a skill, I check you getting it right, and if not, then we do a little bit more review. And I work with other people who are doing training in the branches. So overall, when we train someone to become a salesman or saleswoman selling life insurance, they went through a process of months of training and learning and going on different courses, for years of continuously training, reading manuals. I was writing manuals for them and producing videos. So there's a whole long process of basically changing your skills and monitoring it and checking it to make sure. Keynote, I've got 10 minutes, 30 minutes. That's it. I'm up on stage and that's it. I've got next to no time at all to get it across. And I can't follow up. I have no idea if you're going to use the material well. So it may be the same topic. In fact, and I'll tell you, the first time I'd seen keynote speakers was in 1978, which was around about the time I got this job as the sales training manager. I'd also gone to a conference, and suddenly I'd seen keynote speakers, people who'd come in from America and Australia, get up and do 30, 45 minutes of inspiring talk about around one topic. It might have been about body language. It might have been about managing the branch, closing the sale, all those types of topics that salespeople generally get to hear about at conferences. And I thought, whoa, I really want to do this. So doing that 10-minute product launch was my start, and I felt the buzz. I mean, there's such a buzz that you get from standing on a stage in front of 500 or 1,000 people and delivering a presentation, engaging a presentation, getting applause, hearing everybody laugh at your humor. It's very different to being in a training room with 25 people. If you do the kind of thing that you do on stage for a big keynote, when you're in a training room, it'll go wrong, because it just doesn't work. With a training room, the energy level is much lower. But when you get on a big stage to deliver a keynote, you have to raise the energy. You have to be bigger than you are, because you've got to fill that whole stage. And it's a big stage. It's a stage performance. So I'll tell you now the story of my first big keynote speech. I'd been doing sales training, 2-3 day training courses for this new insurance company, Merchant Investors, and I ran all the training. I was the training manager, so I ran training in the branches and in my own training suite, and I had quite a lot of motivational material that was being built into this, delivered fairly. It had to be delivered a little bit low-key. Sometimes I'd get a bit sort of excited and start practicing what I would want to do in a keynote, but it always had to be tempered. We've got a room full of 10, 20 people. It's very different to a room of 200 or 300. But what I wanted to do was speak at this Congress or the Life Insurance Association annual convention. And that was my goal. That was what I wanted to do. And I worked very hard pushing at it. I went around all the insurance industry meetings around the country and spoke for free at these events, getting well known, delivering mostly technical talks. I'd do talks about capital transfer tax and inheritance tax and talks about mortgages. Those are the kinds of things. And then I slowly start to be talking about sales issues, and because I was now beginning to help and develop and train people in how to deliver really simple sales techniques in the field. And it came to finally I got the gig. Now I have to say it had taken a while. I'd sort of got the bug in 1978. By the time I actually got to do that first big speech, it was 1985, and I changed companies again and was now a product manager for a company developing products and going and doing much bigger conference type speeches, because I was now product launching and I was doing sales seminars, which were one-off. It wasn't like 3 or 4 days. These were now going to be, I was being invited in for an hour to help launch a product, help train the salespeople. So I had developed, while I was a sales training manager, a quite good chunk of material. It was probably about 3 hours in terms of actual training. So when it came to the invitation to speak at the life insurance convention at the Barbican, I had to take essentially 4 hours of training and concentrate it down into a 30-minute keynote and make it really, really entertaining. Well, I had Pink Floyd music on. I had fake paint 10-pound notes. The whole thing was like one big drama. A friend of mine who was actually a theatre director, I told him I'd done this speech and I've got the video of it, and he said, "Oh, I'll have a look." And he knew the insurance industry. And he watched the speech, and he'd had it for a couple of weeks and hadn't bothered to watch it. And then he watched it, came to see me. We got to a meet a few days later. He said, "I've just seen your video. My God," he said, "that wasn't a speech. That was an entire theatre production." And it was. I was running around the audience, throwing things out. I got a 2-3 minute standing ovation at the end of that. But it took over 100 hours of rehearsal and work, just having written the speech just to get it right. And that's the difference between a keynote and training. Training, you can pretty much get up and run with it. You don't need huge amounts of work on it. If somebody asked me to do a workshop on transgender awareness, which I do regularly, for a day, well, I just need to have a quick run through, make sure I've got the right sort of slides, few videos, a little bit of work. I could get it all together in a day. If they asked me to go and do a brand new keynote on some issue of gender or whatever, sales, that I hadn't done for a while, I would need a good week or two. And that's with my experience as a speaker. Putting a keynote together takes a huge amount of time. When people do their TED Talks, they've often put in months of work, hours of actual coaching and rehearsal time to get that right, so they can actually get up there and deliver a brilliant speech. Training, you're moving along, you're talking to people, you're getting people to do things and following it and tracking it. They're very, very different disciplines. It's no difficult. A trainer can become a keynote speaker. A keynote speaker can become a trainer, but you can't mix the two. You can't deliver keynotes for training sessions. You can't deliver training sessions for keynotes. I've done very interactive workshop type material as a keynote, but it has to be organized totally differently because you've got very little time and you have to keep the pace going. Training, you can sit around and discuss things for ages. Totally different. So there we go. Those are the two types of things. I hope you found that useful and interesting. My journey into speaking has been quite a long one. It started, as you see, back in 1970, 73 really was the first part of it. But to certain extent, it really started in 1969. And it's been a long journey. If you'd like some coaching on how to improve your speech, get a keynote together, get a TEDx talk together, get some training material together, then just drop me a line, ricky@rickyarundel.com, and we'll organize a 30-minute introductory session, completely free, no charge for that, no obligation. See how you like working with me. Come back tomorrow, day 26. I look forward to seeing you there. And let's see where we are. Yep, good. Take care. I will see you tomorrow.